Hi there, welcome to the Farmer's Shadow. My name's Paul. In this episode, we're going to talk about protecting your plants from gophers using what I call exclusion wire. And I've got a kind of an alternative way to protect your plants from underneath. We're going to talk about that in this episode. Mainly it's about fava beans and sugar snap peas and how they're protected. Plus I'm going to share some information about those two crops, and yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. Thanks. This is more of that hardware cloth for the areas where we're going to protect some of the crops from gophers. Most of the ones in the bed, I'm not too worried about the garlic and onions and things like that really getting devoured, but there's certain things that are just 100% edible, and that are these climbing peas they're going to be on teepees in these beds, and patches of a pink Polish fava bean, so they're going to be in patches also. So the whole plan was to cut these pieces of hardware cloth 3 by 3, and then dig out a hint of a depression, set the wire in place, put the soil back in place, some more compost, smooth it, and then we can plant in that protected space. And now but when gophers get in there and they're going to be going at the plants, they're going to have this zone where the gophers can nibble on little like feeder roots, but that normally doesn't kill plants. The gophers really want to follow those feeder roots right up to the base of the plant, eat the base of the plant, and literally pull the plant down in the ground. Most of us have seen that with broccoli and carrots and things like that, or even fruit trees. You know, the gophers, their goal is to get to the most nutritious part, like underground beavers, and then pull those plants underground. But they won't be able to, because this is a, you call it exclusion wire, and it's a very low-tech way, and it was kind of like this kind of alternative, because haven't got the perimeter fencing up yet. And so there'll be above ground fencing around this plot, and there'll be below the ground fencing, and it will be about 3 feet down. So we'll use the same wire later, but using a trencher around the footprint of the plot, and this type of wire will be set down in the ground, and we'll go over that. But that's really going to slow down the populations of gophers that live in this whole area, where they're just constantly flowing in. You could trap all you want, and new ones inhabit the tunnel. So it's one of the methods of gopher control. So this is like a temporary thing, but they'll be really easy to install. When the crops are finished, we'll pull the crops out, and then these pieces of wire, we'll just pick them up, shake off the soil, they'll all be flat, and we can store them and do it again. So we won't have wasted this wire. So we've got 4 of them cut, and one of the easiest ways to cut hardware cloth is you could either use tin snips, works pretty good, or you could use a grinder, a 4-inch grinder with a cutting wheel, a really thin cutting wheel. You can see this wire has this memory and wants to roll up. So if you have a couple, either if you have some help, that's one thing. If not, you use like a log on one end, maybe a little board. You just want this flat. Eye protection. And you want to mark this. So Sharpies work pretty good. It's already 3 feet wide, so I'm just going to make them square, 3 by 3. So and right here. So I'll just mark it so I can see. And then you just follow up that line with the grinder. And you know, it's called a cutoff wheel. And they're really, really thin. This very, very thin wheel. It's for cutting metal. You can cut lots of stuff with that little grinding wheel, but you can see it's ultra thin for cutting. It's not really for grinding to to sharpen things or be an actual grinder, but it's a metal cutoff wheel. This is just an inexpensive Ryobi. And then I know the batteries are even worse, but the tool's fine. It's just that the batteries are no good. So you literally can do this battery hack where you can use a good battery from like a DeWalt or Makita, and then they sell these adapters and they work fantastic. So that takes it from the cheap Ryobi batteries that don't last very long to a DeWalt battery that lasts a long time and they're stronger, and it works just fine. So I'm gonna cut this. That's that. Now we got all 5 cut, and we'll be just we'll kind of dig out the area where we want these, and just a couple inches, a little bit depressed and a little bit wider, but we can actually just lay it on, mark around it, dig that out. And we're throwing that soil into wheelbarrows, and then it's easy to scoop it back out of the wheelbarrow, throw it back in, and yeah. Working good. So that's what we're gonna do next. All right, so we got the wire, these sections of 3x3 wire, hardware cloth cut, and this is the 1/2-inch holes, which I think is plenty fine. You're basically just trying to like deter gophers from being able to pull an entire plant down. So they can be underneath and nibbling on feeder roots, but they're fine. Some of the first ones we did they had the smaller 1/4-inch holes, and it was just because I had it. So I started using that first. This is a little bit easier to work with, so I'm gonna use this instead. Just going to kind of, I think I have it laying in the right spot. Just gonna mark it out and then excavate this little space just a couple inches down, so this is down in there so I can see it. Yeah, see, just like that. And set that aside. So that's the depression. Just gonna set the wire in place. It'll just get out here and stand on it. And I'm not too worried about compacting these beds because we haven't driven anything over these beds, just a little bit of foot traffic. So I'm just gonna put a little bit on to hold it down. And I'm perfectly fine if the corners are kind of bent up. It's not really a full-on cage, it's just a barrier. That's it. Now, I'm just gonna put this stuff back in place, and now it's just ended up getting really fluffed up and mixed too. So we'll get that out. That looks good. I think I'm just gonna take the compost, one whole wheelbarrow, and dump it right in the center, close to it. That'll work. Let's start with that. See if that's enough. Probably is about half a wheelbarrow. That's it. We'll probably just lightly smooth it a little bit with a rake, but that's it. This is the footprint. And if it's gonna be the fava beans, we're just gonna push the seeds right in about maybe every 6 or 8 inches, right there. Very unlikely that gophers are gonna, you know, come along, get underneath and nibble on, they can nibble on the roots, but they just can't get the base. And it's very unlikely that they're gonna surface and get inside that little area, because this wire is right underneath there. Very unlikely that they're gonna try to inhabit the interior space of this. So yeah, that's it. Just gonna shove in the seeds. So that'll be a real dense patch of fava beans that will be 3 to 4 feet tall. And then they have all the space to kind of bend out and kind of inhabit this whole area right here. And then the other spots, there'll be literally a teepee that has the sugar snap peas. I think I got 2 varieties. And I looked up tall ones. I want them like 7 or 8 foot tall vines. They have all these semi-dwarfs and they're kind of half vines, and I wanted ones that were tall, so we have all this space up here for picking. So it's, in a way, you're using a lot more of this space as like vertical farming. So yeah. So we are gonna plant Karmazine in quotation marks, fava beans. So these are a beautiful Polish fava bean. They're pink, especially when they're fresh. I have not grown these before, but I found this really interesting variety from this company called Uprising Seeds. Yeah, amazing. They're in Bellingham, Washington, so they're, you know, along the west coast here. Small seed company. They really specialize in lots of all organic seed and lots and lots of different heritage and heirloom varieties and really hard to find and really interesting things. So yeah, fava beans are amazing. They're kind of known for being one of the seeds that often gardeners and farmers they plant, and it's one of the most satisfying things, like especially if you're new to gardening, or especially if you have soil that might be marginal soil and you don't even actually know the condition or the fertility of it. One of the best things to plant is fava beans. They're a cool season plant. They're often used as a cover crop. In fact, some of them are called bell beans, which really are a type of fava bean, but they just use them as a cover crop. It's a really fascinating plant. It's from it's one of the foods of the Andes and different parts of Ecuador, and now it's all over, it's worldwide that they use fava beans. Real often they're planted to improve new soil, but at the same time, it's one of those ones that you can plant and they produce so much. You can get greens from it. You can actually harvest the tips. It's almost like Asian cultures, they use pea shoots. They're the tops of peas when they grow them. They cut them off and then they steam them, and they're amazing. Well, these can be used the same way. They're bigger and bolder, have more of like a bean flavor. So you can actually very quickly, one of the first things you can plant and harvest the tops of these. They're real tender tops. You can eat them raw or steam them or put them in a stir fry or whatever you want to do. So there's a first vegetable you can get from these. They're ultra efficient on finding nutrition in the soil. They also are considered one of the plants that have the ability to hook up with nitrogen fixing bacteria, so they can really help you know, bring a lot of nitrogen out of the atmosphere and get it into your soil, but not overly. So they will really grow quickly even in poor soil. If you amend it a little bit, they're really, really vigorous. You can also eat these as what's called a fresh bean. So you can pick them even really small as a green bean, or you can let them get into their fresh bean stage where the pod is really dense with these really big mature seeds that are still tender, and then they can be cooked real quick as a fresh bean, or you could leave them on the plant until they finally dry and are turned into a hard bean, and then they could be harvested as a dry bean for later, either for eating or for planting later. The pods look really strange when they dry. They turn charcoal black and they look rotten. They look terrible. But that's how they do their thing. They like the cool season And if you don't get really, really killing frost, they'll grow even below freezing. They'll take like 20 degrees, so they're fine. About 15 degrees, that's when they get burned to the ground. So they do really great in cool season. If you try to grow these in warm season, they get covered with aphids, and they're just a mess. So they like the cool season. Yeah, so one of the good legumes that we can grow in the cool season here is favas, and there are lots and lots of really amazing varieties, and they're really nutritious, fast growing, and really fun to cook and eat. Make all kinds of things. You can make hummus out of it, and like a really dark green hummus that's really amazing. The flavor's great, so kind of different. You haven't tried favas, you should try it. If you wanted to, you could soak these ahead of time, like overnight, and they're going to swell up. That's a good thing if you're good at planning, like what you're going to do the next day. You could soak them, but I think I'll just do a quick rake, bust up some of these clods. And the larger the seed, the less you have to really, the less you have to fine texture the soil. If they're really fine textured seeds, you want a much finer seed bed, but these are big, sturdy, bold seeds, and actually all I'm doing here is just making it pretty, because these seeds don't really need me to do this. They'll push all these clods out of the way if they happen to even be on them or near them, so good enough. And this is really, these are absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? They're like a pinkish maroon. Yeah, when they're fresh, they are bright pink, but at this stage, they still are just gorgeous. Yeah. And each one of these will get about 3 to 4 feet tall. They grow a white, really attractive white flower, and they are, bees love them, even bumblebees, if you happen to have bumblebees, but not only bumblebees, you don't see too many around in the winter, but they are often bee pollinated. Fava beans are one of the few like domesticated legumes that they can cross. If you had other fava beans, you could easily kind of cross the genetics. So that's one of the legumes that we want to pay attention to about not letting them cross. If that's what you want to do. What I do is I'm just gonna literally kind of lay these out to get an idea of how many's gonna fit, and take a look, make sure I'm inside that wire, and I think this whole pack I'm just gonna use in this square and space them out as far as I can. So I think I'm gonna go 3, so I've got 1 row of 3, another row of 3, another row of 3. That's a row of, I'm gonna do another row of 3, just like that. And then these 2, put back in the package, because I saw the germination rate, it says something like 95%. Yeah, so I'm just gonna hang on to those. No reason to overcrowd them. So each one of these is going to turn into this very bushy plant. They'll touch right together, 3-4 feet tall. So I'm literally just going to shove these in the ground about 1.5 inches, and that's it. And then firm it down. And then these will just get watered. The seeds will hydrate. And then, so it's 1.5 inches to 2 inches, just firm it. It's a good idea not to, when you plant these large seeds like this, you don't want to just do that and walk away. Now there's a big depression there. Very often you're going to have sow bugs or earwigs that come out at night, and they're searching around to chew things up. They'll fall into that depression right there. And sow bugs, that's like a sand trap. They can't get out. So now you're going to have a sow bug in there. Sow bugs, they could burrow into the soil, and they're going to find that germinating seed. It's just expanding, and the fleshy part is exposed, and that sow bug will, now it's right there. You just had a pitfall trap for it to fall in there. So you want to at least make it flat, but don't leave a serious depression like this. You're going to have sow bugs that fall in, and as the seed germinates and starts to come up, they'll devour the cotyledons that are dropping the seed coat and just literally kill the entire plant. So always, anything that you push in, cover it up, because some pest is going to fall in there and most likely eat it before, and you'll think that the seeds are no good when really they were just devoured underground, just like that. So, got it. That's that.